name's Ansel Sanders. I'm so excited to be here and to be back in Greenville and share with you some of the things that I've learned during my time away. It's been 3 years. And to pay that forward a little bit more to tell you a bit about what's going on in terms of innovation here in Greenville. Now, I read recently an article by a well-renowned, a globally renowned teacher named Nancy Atwell. She teaches in Maine. And she wrote this article in the Washington Post, and she began it like this. I thought this was a really compelling line. She said, you know, U.S. reformers in education, they always talk about innovation as something to really move the needle for kids. And by the way, the word innovation is usually preceded by the modifier technological. Now this is true, she went on to say. She said, technology innovation in education is how we think about innovation. In fact, it's devices and applications that define what we think about and talk about in terms of innovation in education. Now, that's not untrue. In fact, the way Russell framed this entire TEDxGreenvilleSalon is in this way. This is a picture from the invitation that you actually received. And look, this is a young man on a computer. We love to think about iPads for every kid in the classroom. We love to think about the next computer software thing. And that's not a wrong definition of innovation. Technological innovations have and will continue to open doors for education for thousands of kids. It will deepen our way of learning. It will allow us to better individualize instruction. But I'm here tonight not to talk about technological innovations. And it's something I really believe in. Russell talked about it earlier. I was at Whittenberg. I helped open Fisher Middle School. These things were built on technological innovations. So I agree with that. But I think that technological innovation, how we define innovation that way, is limiting. It's not something that we should take fully into account. In fact, I'm here to introduce an innovation that I've learned about over the past 3 years, as well as have seen going on here in Greenville. That's very simple and seemingly common sense, but it is something that does not happen very, very often. And that is this. Simply put, multiple stakeholders intentionally coming together to ensure that each and every child has the supports they need to thrive in this world is an innovation that doesn't happen in schools all the time. And I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about that tonight. And I'm going to talk to you about this idea of partnerships as innovation by telling you a little story about my daughter. This is Stuart Sanders. Stuart is our youngest of 3 daughters. And this is Stuart's scar right here. You can kind of see it up here. She's trying to cover it up because she's a humble child. This is after bath time, by the way. And Stuart, in her 11 months, has undergone 2 open heart surgeries. Now, this picture here is about a week after Stuart's first heart surgery. And this is when I walked into the recovery room where she was. And a lot struck me about this picture, but what I wanted to point out to you all is this circle of people. Now you can see some technological innovations at play here. You see all kinds of wires and tubes running out of Stuart to all kinds of machines, and those are certainly helping her get healthy, and those are certainly helping these medical professionals do their job. But the thing that really stuck out to me about this were those people and what they represented in terms of their skills, in terms of their beliefs, in terms of their passions. We had surgeons, we had other doctors, pharmacists, social workers, chaplains, child welfare specialists. All of these folks were intentionally coming together, talking to one another, inquiring, being vulnerable, being transparent, sharing ideas and resources entirely in the name of one single entity, my Stuart. And she's right there in the middle of this all. Now, pause there. Stuart was born just under a year ago in Memphis, Tennessee. While I was in Memphis, not only were Helen and I having our 3rd child, but I was there working for an organization called the Achievement School District. This is a state entity that was created to take over and turn around the state's bottom 5% of performing schools, and in very short order, meaning 5 years, catapult them to the top 25% of performing schools in the state. This was a tall task. And my particular job was to build a portfolio of partners across multiple sectors that our schools could choose from in order to ensure that our children had the supports and services they needed to thrive. Now granted, 100% of the students that attended these schools are from poverty. 100% were eligible for free and reduced lunch. And my thought was I'd go out and I would build partnerships with hospital systems. I would build partnerships with other nonprofits. I would build partnerships with all kinds of organizations, and then the schools could choose from them. And I was not doing well in my job at this time. Stuart was born, this was happening, and it wasn't because of Stuart necessarily I wasn't doing well. But I was building all of these partnerships. Man, I would go into these meetings guns blazing, absolutely sell the value proposition of working with a bottom 5% school and coming on board. They'd be all board and say, here we are, when they showed up to the school. And nothing would happen. Nothing would happen. These partnerships were completely underutilized, and it left everybody frustrated. It left my principals frustrated. It left those service-providing organizations who were so excited, very, very frustrated. It left our teachers frustrated. It left our families frustrated. And it left me frustrated. But when I walked into this room and I saw the level of intentionality that was occurring as they were represented by the folks around this circle, singularly focused on the most vulnerable entity in that room, which is Stuart, that's when I realized that I needed to actually create the conditions for great partnership instead of just building a massive portfolio of partners. I knew that I had to create a system of multiple stakeholders with a level of intentional collaboration that was completely child-centered to ensure that our schools could best leverage these partnerships. So before, I was operating under this field of dreams theory of action, right? Hey, if I just build this portfolio of partners, they'll come. They'll come, schools will get it, we'll do it, and we'll get our schools to those top 25%. Didn't happen. I was also totally subject to the thing out there that is often happens in education, and I like to call that the next shiny thing syndrome. Oh goodness, educators, we are so bad at this, y'all. So bad at this. And it happens in technology as well. Ooh, here's the next best thing out there. Let's get it. That'll solve this problem. Ooh, here's a partnership with this awesome organization. Let them come on in and work with our kids. Oh, there's this new model, new curriculum that is absolutely the best. It's a plug and play. Let's do it. And it will solve all of our problems. That is absolutely not true. And it totally burned me during my time in Memphis. And it was much less about the scope of partnerships or the next shiny thing. It was actually about building systems and mindsets to ensure our schools were ready to partner with the services and the organizations that provided those services that our kids deserved and absolutely needed. So here's what I did. I created a toolbox. I created what I like to call a partnership-ready toolbox that I both introduced and worked to apply to the schools with whom I was working. And guys, we think of innovation, we think of all this crazy stuff. This is common sense. This is absolutely common sense types of stuff. And the idea is that if schools and community organizations that have some kind of service that they can offer operate with these strategies in mind, if they have similar and related visions, or if at least they work to see how those visions are related to one another towards outcomes for kids, if there is alignment between the school and the school system and the organizations with which they are working around certain goals, if there is assessment, meaning if they understand how to measure their impact and their progress, and if they're willing to take that assessment and pivot towards improvement, if they have a value of shared leadership, meaning if they share in responsibility for success and they're able to have open and honest conversation about where they fail and where they fall down, and then if they align their capacity for the long term, if they say, we're going to take another look at the way we spend our money, we're going to take another look at the way we spend our time, because we value the presence of these organizations and the services they offer. If those conditions are right, schools and the organizations with which they partner will be ready to create the type of partnership with the type of conditions that will result in great things for kids. Now, let me go back one slide here. The results of the Achievement School District that I worked with last year are pretty astounding. And it's not only because of this partnership stuff, but listen to this. All of the 5 schools with whom we worked are no longer in the bottom 5%. 2 of those schools, if they do as well as they did this year as they did last year, they will be in the top 25% of performing schools in the state of Tennessee. By the way, these are the bottom of the bottom 5%. Secondly, instructional time that was previously lost to consistent behaviors dropped by 35%. That is an equivalent of 8 years saved of instructional time. 8 years saved. 8 more years that kids are in school and learning. Now, was it all because of this toolkit and my work to actually try to integrate into the practice of the schools? No. It was one of many things. But this was one of the pieces to the puzzle that I believe is quite innovative because you don't see it very often in schools. Now, I know this is TEDx Greenville. This is not TEDx Memphis or TEDx Tennessee. I get that. I no longer work for the Achievement School District. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and I work for Public Education Partners of Greenville County. I'm excited about that. And so I'm not going to focus my entire talk tonight about what I did in Memphis or what is going on in Memphis. Here is what's going on in Greenville, because it is the same type of deliberate, intentional focus about partnerships across multiple entities towards big outcomes for kids that is going on here in Greenville. And that initiative is called On Track Greenville. Russell did a little show of hands thing earlier. Raise your hand if you are aware of On Track Greenville. It's kind of right up here, but that looks fairly good. That looks fairly good. And I'm so glad that so many hands are actually down so I can share this good news with you. At its core, On Track Greenville is about creating the conditions for good partnerships between service-providing organizations and the schools they serve. Specifically, 4 Greenville County middle schools that are in and around the White Horse Road community. Berea Middle School, Lakeview Middle School, Tanglewood Middle School, and the Greenville Urban College. Now, why these 4 schools? Take a look at some of these statistics. 92% of students who attend these schools are eligible for free or reduced meals. That basically is a poverty index that schools use. 40% of the students in these schools are frequently absent. 46% do not meet English language arts proficiency standards, and 52% of students who attend these 4 middle schools don't meet mathematics proficiency as well. These are schools that are performing very similar to the schools that I was talking about in Memphis. Now, why middle school? Think about this research, everybody. If a 6th grader is at risk in one of 3 of these particular indicators, if they have attendance issues, meaning that they are absent more than 80% of the school year, or excuse me, I put that backwards. If they have an 80% attendance rate during the school year, if they have consistent behavior issues, or if they are failing a course in English language arts or math, they are 75% chance of graduating from high school on time without effective interventions in place. Let that sink in. That is an amazing and horrifying statistic for 6th grade students. Attendance issues or behavior issues or course performance issues, they are very much likely to drop out of school and not graduate high school. And you can see the overlap here between the ABCs and the schools that On Track actually serves. Now, if we are going to reach our big goals in On Track Greenville, and they are big and they are ambitious, we want a 75% reduction in chronic absenteeism at these schools. We want a 50% reduction in some of these behaviors that we are seeing, both through suspension rates and disciplinary referrals. and a 25% increase in their English language arts and math performance. If we want these ambitious outcomes for kids, it goes back to this idea of partnerships. It goes back to this idea of deliberately partnering across multiple organizations in the schools we serve for the betterment of kids towards these ambitious outcomes. Here are the 5 organizations that are doing this work. You have Greenville County Schools, which is a vital part to all of this, given these middle schools are part of Greenville County Schools. Greenville County Schools is providing mental health counselors and leadership courses within the school. Greenville Health System is setting up health clinics in each and every one of these 4 middle schools. Communities in Schools is a case management organization that is ensuring our most at-risk, our most vulnerable are connected with the services they need and deserve. Building Educated Leaders for Life, BELT, is a summer program that is focusing on that out-of-school time. And then Public Education Partners, my organization, is focused on providing specialized coaching in teaching so we can ensure that our teachers are high-performing and functioning at their best. Part of all of this work is coming together and using data from an early warning response system to ensure that we're asking the why question. Why is Ansel absent 35–40% of the time during this first quarter of the school year? What is going on in Ansel's life? And to ensure that there are the proper interventions aligned with that particular root cause of an attendance symptom. And then coming together as a team to use this data and using the plan to refine our practice over time. Now I'll end with this particular quote from a mentor of mine named Paul Rebel. He's a former commissioner of education in the state of Massachusetts. And he, like me, believes in this definition of innovation as it pertains to partnerships. And OnTrack is planting the seed of this type of work here in Greenville. But as Russell alluded to, I like to think big. I don't like to just think about our 4 schools who I know will meet the outcomes in our 3 to 5 year term for OnTrack. I know we will meet those, but what about the other high poverty schools? What about all schools? What if Greenville, as a particular community, as an entire community, leverage these types of innovations, these ideas behind readiness of partnering together and solve some of our big social issues that we're talking about today? What if the entire state of South Carolina said, oh, we can do this. We can come together using this deliberateness behind partnership, and we can set ourselves up for success, not just for the hundreds of students that OnTrack Greenville is serving, but for the hundreds of thousands of children in the state of South Carolina who deserve this level and intentional type of collaboration between us, and I know we will get there if we do. So thank you all very, very much.